Well, if you think about the infrastructure of the travel industry. So I began my presentation by showing a faucet and then showing the plumbing. Blockchain is around the plumbing. It is a new platform for all the transactions to be recorded and to be settled. And so there's a lot of buzz in the industry, but the thing that I think most people within the tourism and travel industry need to pay attention to is there a way to automate contracts? Is there a way to improve the settlement time? Is there a way to just improve the infrastructure? It's akin, though, to early internet. So if you spoke to someone around the internet about what's the internet in the late 80s, let's say, well, that's where we're at with blockchain, or maybe early 90s. It's still a very young technology, but it's being worked on by a group of very young developers worldwide. So it's a community type of effort. So if you think about the operating system Linux, which is an open source operating system, blockchain could provide this open source foundation for travel transactions. Well, the first thing that they have to do is they have to educate themselves on exactly what blockchain is. When you have new technology like this, you have sometimes bad actors out there who, someone who's selling blockchain just to raise money for a digital token that really has no utility. So they have to learn, they have to understand what this is about, investigate what's happening with, like, some of the folks we had on stage. We had an open permissionless blockchain called Winding Tree. We had a representative from TUI on stage who talked about how TUI is using blockchain, and we had a representative from Amadeus talked about how they're going to use blockchain. Read about what is happening with the industry, how that's used, and then think about what's the pain point that you're hoping to solve based on what this technology could do. But again, you're probably, as a tourism bureau, not going to build the plumbing. You want to figure out how you hook into the plumbing. You want to figure out how you can participate as this grows and becomes more ubiquitous. I think that I've done emerging technologies for 25 years in the travel industry, and I've seen this with everything. And there's a very classic graph by Gartner called the hype cycle. And so everything, new technology always goes up this peak of disillusionment, where then it drops off and then slowly gains. I mean, we saw that with virtual reality. Everyone thought, oh, travel is dead. People will just use virtual reality. It's not true, but someday that may be true. I think we're at a very high hype with blockchain, but I think from that, you'll see some actual projects and applications come from that. And it will be something that I think will be a little sooner than people expect. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll see some transactions in travel happening on the blockchain. Well, it's early. I mean, I think what TUI has done about creating a single record across their different divisions so that there's a single record of the inventory, and therefore there's a source of truth versus arbitrage between the different entities is a great example. So if you're a tourism and you operate across different entities accessing inventory or accessing information, you want to figure out how blockchain could be used to kind of standardize that and have a single source of truth. I think there is a sense that's important, but they don't know how it applies to them. And so you would have to go back and say, well, how has the internet changed your job? How has mobile changed your job? And think about that in that same breath, is that no matter what you feel about it emotionally, it's going to happen. It's going to change things. And the biggest thing that we have to have happen here in the tourism and travel industry is we need to have all the entities talk about what their requirements are. So, because this is going to be developed by millions, or not millions, but probably thousands of developers. And so developers will only build something based on requirements. So if there are pain points in settlement, in having a single source of truth, in having identity, any of these things that we discussed as people hopefully review the presentation, those are the things that have to be defined by the actual people who use it within the system, the tourism bureaus, for instance. So they need to define what do they need to get out of this, and then drive that developer or development community to solve those problems versus being a bystander and then have things happen to them. You don't want that to be the case.